name's Gena Glickman, and I'm the president of Manchester Community College.
Okay. What was your first contact with MCC?
Oh, my. Well, I remember the very first time that I walked through the doors of MCC. I had been staying at a local hotel for my interview, and no water, no heat, no. It was so I was a little bit off kilter, and I walked in the door, and I met Ann Bonney, who was introducing me and showing me around the campus. I had this sense of warmth, engagement, the minute I walked through those doors in the AST building. An incredible sense of comfort. It was transformational in a way, and I remember that instant, and I remember feeling that this was a place that felt like home to me.
And you came, obviously, from a community college in Illinois.
I did.
Is MCC different? I know it's smaller.
It's a smaller school. What's different about it is the culture. There is, when I walked through those doors and and I saw students milling around and people talking to them, there was a sense that people were looking up and saying hello, very welcoming environment, very engaged environment. Everyone I spoke to asked me about students. And the culture that I came from, maybe because it was a larger school, but it was a very different sensibility. And the engagement was just really, it's what drew me in.
If someone were to say to you, what does the president of a community college do? How do you respond?
Everything and nothing. It's funny because I think that the role of a president is, you're the voice of the college and the community. You're a very public figure, which always surprises me. But you really don't do the work of the institution. You engage people in the conversation about the institution. You kind of set a direction or a path, a tone. I mean, I believe that one person can really do that. But you don't do the work at the institution. And so to me, there's the people the faculty, the staff, the students, they're doing the work of the institution. And my job is really to make sure that they have an environment in which they can do that, whether it's a fiscal environment, whether it's a community engagement piece. It is my job to make sure that everyone else can function at the highest possible level.
Did you have a vision for what you wanted MCC to become when you came here, or has that been developing over the 4 years you worked here?
I think it's developed over the 4 years that I've been here. That it's funny because that's the first question you get in an interview or in what's your vision for the college? And I think that you can be very generic about that, about what a community college does for a community, for the state, but you can't really know where it is you want to take the institution until you get to know the people, you get to know what people's dreams are. And so it's really taken me some time, I think, to decide for myself what my most important role is, and I think that it will continue to develop.
Mm-hmm. So where do you see the college going in the next 5 years or so? Or where would you like to take it?
Well, one of the things when I came in, I thought, I'm usually someone that is brought in to turn a school around, to take an institution that hasn't been performing and to create an environment where it can perform and be engaged in the community. When I came here, I said to our then chancellor, I'm not sure I'm the right fit. This is a very high-performing institution that seems very engaged in the community. And so I struggled a little bit to find my place and realized that from the time I came in through where I'd like the college to be in another 5 years is to really set a tone to empower people who work here, to empower students, to be engaged both fully in the work they're doing, to feel very supported in that work, and to be a real driver in the state for economic development, for community engagement, to be a player, and to move. I think the project we're doing on Main Street is one example. Opening a space on Main Street, working very closely with the town, local businesses, and the students to create an environment that creates a kind of college town atmosphere that brings people downtown and keeps that community very engaged. So I see more of that. I'm far more political now than I've ever imagined. It always surprises me how many speaking engagements I go to. I was at an event Saturday night, and somebody said to me, I think you're in more places than I am, and I'm running for, I'm going to run for office. But the connections that I've been able to make with the hospital network, with local business people, with our legislators, even through the governor's office, I think well positions the college, especially for funding, either public or private. So I want to have a very strong base. I think we can grow. We've already started developing new programs, and that was something that was kind of stagnating. We're known as a very premier transfer institution. We did some workforce development, but I think now we're connected in ways we weren't connected before.
Okay. You mentioned being the face of the college and talked about your speaking engagements and dealing with government. Are there some people who you are working with or have worked with who particularly stand out as people you connect with and feel are important for the growth of the college?
Certainly our local legislators are critical to the college. They need to know what's going on, what our issues are, what our concerns are for their constituencies. So certainly that's a group of people that's very important to us. Our Regional Advisory Council is a group of people in the community who touch people I might not touch on a regular basis. Our town leaders are critical. All of the external support, private businesses, philanthropy, foundations, all of those folks are important. And I'm very proud of the work that we do with the chambers. We have over 250 people on our campus who are involved in community activities. Our reach is pretty incredible. And we have students from almost every town. So all of that, there are so many constituents that are critical. Our retirees are absolutely engaged now, and that's a really important constituent group for us because there's a history, and some of those people have been incredible advisors to me.
In the last couple of years, you've brought in some people or promoted people to dean positions, upper management positions. What do you look for when you hire someone for a leadership position?
We had been in a situation where we had, in our leadership, people who had been here a very long time and were ready to retire when I came in. That's a pretty exciting time. And some of it happened a little bit before I really knew what I was going to look for in a leadership team, because it's not only the competency of that individual, but it's the engagement as part of a team that's going to move the institution and be responsive to the institution. And that's really what I looked for, was I wanted people around me who didn't think like I did necessarily, but whose vision was closely aligned with mine. I needed a group of people that, if someone was less engaged or less more detail-oriented, I wanted somebody else who was thinking in a different way. So I looked for people with a variety of leadership styles. We had some amazingly talented people internally who had a history of the institution, had built relationships, and that was really important to me, too. I followed a president who had been here a very long time, and there were people in the institution who had ideas that hadn't been implemented. So I looked for a good balance, and I looked internally because I think that, one, people also could move quickly when they knew an institution, but two, we have this amazing talent here. And so that to me is really critical. I don't want to lose those people who have ideas and are excited, and give them an opportunity to lead.
Now, you have an arts background, and I suspect that that's fairly unique for college presidents in this country. Has that provided you with a different perspective?
I think coming from an arts background gives you a different way of thinking. I don't think about that often, but I do think that there is a way where you learn to visualize where it is you want to be. And you learn how all of the pieces, whether it's line or color or composition, puts all of that together. And so you'll often find me in a meeting kind of drawing a picture of where things belong. I'll have this piece here and that piece there, and that's how I put things together. There's certainly a draw for me of the strong arts department that we have here, both in the graphics area and in the fine arts and in music, and I would love to extend that to theater. I think that's what gives an institution heart and soul, and so the fact that we are so engaged in the arts is just critical to me. I think that the arts also bring students who are less academically ready into a way of thinking that engages them, and that gives them some sense of success. And so I think it's very important for students as well.
Suppose you were talking to a friend or a former colleague who's never been on this campus, and they asked you, what is MCC like? Not what do we like, but what is...
It's a little slice of heaven. It's a little slice of heaven. It is an institution, and I've said this often to people who've said, and I've been at several different institutions who've asked me, well, what's it like to be at MCC? Are you still happy? And I said, well, I've been here, I'm finishing my 4th year, I still feel like I'm on a honeymoon. This is one of the nicest, most engaged colleges. People are really student-centered, but they're also generally very supportive of each other. And I think that people they may face an issue or a problem, but it's always, how are we going to solve that together? Things don't seem insurmountable, and I think we put a lot of pressure on people, especially in this economy, without having the resources. We've moved forward, and it's not just my energy, it's the energy of the campus.
Anything you'd like to add that we may not have covered?
I think MCC is an amazing place. I think we have amazing opportunities. We have students who have succeeded beyond probably their wildest expectations. We have an incredible group of faculty, staff, retirees, community members who are all looking for us to be as successful as we possibly can. And that's an enviable position for a president to be in, certainly.
Somebody just a couple of speeches ago talked about the decision-making being flat now as compared to this way. That's a dangerous thing, I would think, for a president. Basically, you throw, you say, John, make a decision, Bob, make a decision, or somebody else. Has that always been where you've been philosophically coming into?
One of the things that we talked a little bit earlier about a new leadership team, and MCC has always been incredibly high-performing as an institution. But I also noticed when I came in that people were always asking permission. So my goal was to get us on the same page in terms of our vision and where we wanted to go. I believe that people do the right thing. I'll always try and do the right thing. It might not be the politically correct thing. But it's very important to me that people feel empowered. And I came into a leadership team where somebody would say, we need to go in this direction, and this is how we're going to get there. And people would do that. They'd do the work. But if I were to ask, where do you want to go? They would in turn say, no, where do you want to go? And it's not about me. And so that was really critical. Does that always work? Sometimes, people go on tangents. But I think that we are a stronger institution for the empowerment of those leaders. And some of those leaders will stay with us. And I'm not just speaking about deans, but directors at all levels, staff members, may take their skills and go to another institution. I hope we can provide the opportunity for growth here, but I think it's really an important thing to learn, and I think that it's built a culture of engagement that maybe wasn't as prevalent as I hope it is now.
You're not getting away so easily. The one advantage we have, quite honestly, is this is in the can and it becomes old once we turn it off. So I'm dying to know at some point you will no longer be president either because you choose to retire or move on or whatever. And I guess my question is, what is it that you want, on a tombstone or on some validation that was your accomplishment, that you would walk away going, I did all the things I wanted to do? Have you given any thought to that? Because I'd like to see this for years from now. That's what I want to see.
Oh boy! If I say something now, and it doesn't happen. I know. One of the things that makes me the most proud and keeps me motivated is graduation. I watch these students walk across the stage and their families and the sense of accomplishment and pride that they have. And one of the things that's been really important to me is that students complete what they start, that they're able to reach their goals. And we've been instrumental, I think, on the campus, and sometimes it's been because of the new structure. Sometimes it's just been a kind of motivation that we're going to go in this direction and make sure certain things are in place. But we've increased retention, we've increased persistence, we've increased student success, and to me that's what we're all about. I want every person in our community to not only say to me when they see me at the gym or at the grocery store, gee, I went to MCC, it's a great place. I want them to be able to give me 3 reasons why it's a great place. And I want everybody, whether or not they've been a student, they have a child that's been a student, they've had a cousin that's been a student, to know something about us, to have MCC have touched every single household in our community in some way, and hopefully in a positive way. I think that's, if I can do that and I can engage that community, we will be set. We will. We've always had an amazing reputation for excellence. We've always been considered the flagship. We might not always be the largest, but we're always going to be the best.
You talked about empowerment, engagement are the 2 terms I've heard you use, and it seems to me that you have similar desires for your staff, your faculty.
Absolutely.
Just an anecdote before that, one of the comments that comes up from our old people way back when was the sense of empowerment. We were encouraged to do all sorts of wonderful things, which is how we evolved it. And it sounds like you're going in that direction, or you are encouraging that.
I'm encouraging even more of that. I think that the ideas that people bring to the table are critical, whether it's reaching across the river to Hartford to engage Hartford Public Schools with our high school. They run some of the top magnet schools in the country. We have a lab school. Harvard had a lab school back when they were founded. I want to ensure that we have kids ready to learn, ready to come to college. And I think that the only way that you reach those goals and be able to have the kind of foundation and philanthropy that helps support innovation is when you empower people. And I think the innovation grants were one way for me to publicly say, I want you to think about all of the dreams that you have and the things that you might be able to do, and to be able to fund those things, to get people sort of started on a path that they might have thought about, considered, but didn't think that they had the support or resources to accomplish.
Good. John? We're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.